Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Ben Backus.
And I'm Kevin Paulin, and welcome to the Falling Up Podcast, where we have conversations about turning obstacles into opportunities. And on today's show, we have the pleasure of being joined by Mrs. Heather LaTorra.
Heather is the CEO and president of Marrakech, a massive nonprofit organization in New Haven, and she's a rock star, man. She went from intern to president over her 38-year career so far with Marrakech, and we jump all over in this conversation, but we cover just a lot of, I think, really meaningful topics, and her just authenticity and genuine nature really comes across in this conversation. And I hope all the listeners get a little something out of this. I know I came away with a lot from this conversation.
Me as well. Heather is someone that inspires me as a leader and someone I look up to and someone that I highly respect. So without further ado, welcome to the Falling Up Podcast. Back like I left my car keys.
So I'm going to let you start this one off.
All right. With great pleasure. With great pleasure. So today on our latest episode, we have Miss Heather LaTorra. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Because I never say Miss LaTorra. I always say Heather. So.
That's right.
All right. So we have Heather LaTorra, the is it CEO or executive director?
President and CEO.
President and CEO.
That's right.
Of one of my favorite organizations I ever worked for. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I love everything that Marrakech stands for, everything that it's about Marrakech, the people I met, the relationships I've grown from, how I've grown professionally and personally. And just an absolute pleasure to have you on the Falling Up Podcast today. And a conversation that once I told Ben about, he was super excited. You know what I mean? I was super excited. As you see, we brought the bright lights. You know what I mean? The big stage.
I need my sunglasses.
So, I'm just thrilled and I'm humbled that you were able to take the time out your busy schedule to join us today, and to make sure that we give you your flowers for all the impact that you have in our community, and because I see it firsthand, and I've appreciate to being able to work with you last couple of months as well closely, and to see what you do and how you do it, and so much I've learned as I also hold a leadership role in our organization. So I'm just grateful, and I'm just ready to jump in and really, build with you. And, shout outs to New York City, the birthplace, my birthplace as well.
Brooklyn, New York.
BK.
Yeah.
And, let's start from there. Let's just start from the journey from where it all started from, because I thought even that was like super duper impressive, like graduating high school at a young age. 16,
yep.
And coming to Southern Connecticut. So how did that journey start? Like, how did you even end up in Connecticut?
So in Brooklyn, the schools are a little overcrowded, and they skip you through, and that's really how I got to college at 16. I skipped 8th grade. I'm a November birthday, so no brilliance in me.
Scorpio?
Sorry. Scorpio.
No wonder.
That's it.
No wonder.
Yep.
So was that your choice to do that, or was it just kind of, hey, this is just what's thrown in front of me, and now I'm left to kind of fend for myself?
Everyone was doing it.
Okay.
So I went to school in Coney Island. I went to middle school at Mark Twain Junior High School in Coney Island, and then went to John Dewey High School, also in Coney Island, Brooklyn, where Spike Lee graduated from. Mm-hmm. And this was I think this kind of made me who I am. It was a non-competitive high school, and that was a choice. There's hundreds of high schools in Brooklyn, and this was a school where you don't get grades. And I was kind of like, oh, good. No A's, B's, C's, D's, F's. Well, there was. You either passed or failed. And so there was no competition. There were no football team. It was all intramural. And it was an experimental school to see how the kids would turn out. And I remember I took 4 semesters of rock history. We ended up seeing Pink Floyd The Wall together with the teacher. So it was all about creativity and everyone together, working together. It was very diverse and just a wonderful experience for me. And we all graduated, which was awesome. And it didn't matter where we ended up. It was a little risky about where you're going to go to college with no grades, no GPA. But we got into school if that's what we wanted to do.
And what, if any, kind of social obstacles did that pose going from high school at 16 to college where you're traditionally with, anywhere 18 to 25, let's say?
Yeah, there were 2 major obstacles when I came to Connecticut for college when I was 16, and one was my age. So going into the dorms and everyone was drinking and doing stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. So I just went to bed. I just went to my dorm room and fell asleep. And then one day I'm like, if you can't beat them, join them. So, I just started hanging out with people and learning about socialization that way. But I also came from Brooklyn, New York, and everything was open all night long. There were no roads with no lights. I mean, I felt so much safer in Brooklyn than I did in Connecticut, because I could stop at any corner. There's a phone booth. Oh, there were no cell phones and Ubers and stuff when I was young. And
I come from the era of phone booths. I come from that.
There were phone booths and things like that. I didn't have a cell phone that's going to get me somewhere, so I had a map, and it was Connecticut. It wasn't like in New York. It's like A, B, C streets or 1, 2, 3rd Avenue, that kind of stuff. And in Connecticut, it's all names of things I wasn't used to. So, and it wasn't really diverse. And so that was pretty hard for me too. I was a Jewish girl in Brooklyn, and anytime I was hanging out with people or dating a guy or something, and then one day it always ended up where, you didn't tell me you were Jewish. I'm like, oh, was that, I was supposed to make that announcement. I didn't realize. And that didn't happen in Brooklyn because we were all mixed. We were all together. We were all diverse. So everybody lived together, and we went to school together and worked together. And that was like a big eye opener, and no one warned me about that. So it was really interesting that Connecticut was not diverse, not open at night, no lights. And I was a kid.
Yeah, that has to be an absolute, I guess, culture shock is what comes to mind. But I would imagine, especially be at 16, where it's, hey, I've only seen the world through one set of eyes for this period of time, and all of a sudden I'm going into this whole new universe.
Yep.
What were some obstacles that kind of stood out outside of the lack of diversity that really stand out from that time?
Well, I kind of figured things out.
You just crushed it.
Yeah, I just, figured things out. And there were a couple of traumatic moments in college and learning. Like, I trusted everyone. Everybody I knew, I trusted. And our school had thousands of kids in it in high school. And we just trusted each other. We just, were able to talk to each other. No one was out to get me. No one was out to, we protected each other if there was a problem. And, I was a little too trusting of people. I had a person that I lived with who stole all my money out of the bank. And then I was watching her finally on the video stealing my money out of the bank. I'm thinking, no, we share a mailbox. She must have had the key to my mailbox. Like, I really trusted people. And it was hard to learn the hard way that, not everyone's trustworthy. So I think that was a big learning experience.
Yeah, that'll, I would imagine, pump the brakes on the trust.
Mm-hmm. And the stigmas that come with Brooklyn, like people that wouldn't know that or been to Brooklyn or hear these stories of Brooklyn would probably think it would be the opposite. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yep.
And to see that community trust there and missing here is that's interesting. That's interesting. So now we're in college. So now we're at Southern. What was the next step after Southern? Where was what was that after you graduated from Southern?
So I went to Southern because, again, I'm 16. My mom's like, hey, you always want to be a teacher. You're always playing school, and you love every time you meet someone with special needs. Mm-hmm. You always want to help them, and you enjoy it. And so I found the best special education school close to home. And so she found Southern Connecticut State University, and she's like, that's where you're going to college. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be a special ed teacher. And I just listened to my mom. And I started my classes in special ed. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. I loved learning about where people go to school and how to help kids in school. I did, student teaching. And I remember we had a special ed resource room, and the kids hated when I called them out of their room, like, because I was the special ed person, and that was very stigmatizing. So I said, just set your watch, meet me in the hallway. I won't get you out. You'll be like, you're the king of the class. And, so I did all these great things, and I was so proud of where the kids were going. And then I had a professor who decided to give me a B on one of the papers I wrote in one of my special ed classes. And I'm like, I brought it back to her. And now knowing, because I did teach at Southern and the University of Bridgeport, so now knowing what it's like to be a professor and someone asking you to read their paper again, and you're like, no, But she was wonderful. She's like, Heather, why do you need an A? What's your problem? Why do you need an A? And I said, because I want to be the best special ed teacher there is in the state, and the only way to do it is to get all A's. And she's like, is that really the way to do it? And I'm like, well, what else? What do you suggest? And she said, if you want to be the best special ed teacher in Connecticut, you should know where people with disabilities live and work. So you're teaching them the skills they need outside of school. Don't just teach them in the classroom. And that was like, yeah, you're right. That would really make me a better teacher if I knew the options for people. And she said, so we have an internship program where it's called an educator, and you could go find an organization to do your internship, and then you can learn what opportunities people with disabilities have in the community, and that will help you. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm a kid. I don't have a car. There's no such thing as an Uber. So I took out the yellow pages. You know what yellow pages are?
I do.
Okay, that's good. So I took out the yellow pages.
I was there for that too.
And my dorm at Southern Connecticut State University, and I'm looking for a human service organization that supports people with disabilities. And I was looking for one closest to my dorm, and I found Marrakech 38 years ago. It said Marrakech. And I called them up because it was walking distance from my dorm, well, their office was. And I told them who I was, and I said I had to do an internship. And they said, come on board. Come here and do your internship here. Absolutely. And then I did. And at that time, think about 38 years ago, where most people with disabilities were living. They had two choices. They were at home with their parents forever, not a great choice, or in an institution,
right.
Not a good choice.
Right.
So there weren't a lot of choices, but Marrakech at the time were meeting people that were living at home and living in institutions or not working, and help them find a place where they could live, help them find a place where they could work. And I saw lives transform in front of my faces. I saw people like really excited about life from when I visited them, and I went into Mansfield Training School. I was at Southbury Training School, and I saw it, and it wasn't good. And to see people from there come into the community, pick the color of the room, have their own bedroom. I don't know. Sharing a bedroom's hard, and that's usually with someone you choose to share a bedroom with. I mean, that's crazy. So getting people out of institutions and out away from mom and dad was so inspirational for me that when I graduated and I was a teacher, I'm like, I kind of want to keep going with this. This is good. Imagine making money and helping people at the same time. And this is like true. Schools, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of like, oh, you want to do something special for students or whatever. It has to get approved, and the principal and the superintendent, there's just so much to do to change anything. And this was a job where you could just go in and meet people and get them out of the place that they are dying to get out of, and just saying, what do you want? What are your goals? Where do you want to live? Where do you want to work? What would make you happy? And just do it without any restrictions. Now, of course, they always try to put restrictions like, oh, well, people with disabilities can't do this, or they shouldn't have that, or they need 24-hour supervision, or all this kind of stuff. But we taught them pretty quickly that that's not true. And, and I like that. I like not following, not red tape, just getting people the lives they need as fast as possible. So that's why.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's great beauty to that. And the
It is.
reality is when you take away the red tape and you just do, that's when people can become adaptive and resilient, right? Like we figure out a way. And I broke my back in 2011. And I was talking to someone later who broke their back over in England. And they were like, oh, yeah, I was in the hospital for like a year. I spent, I think, 5 weeks in the hospital. And like, I was fighting to get out because of how much I just like felt like I was trapped and confined. And I'll never forget, like my parents went out, I don't know, probably went out shopping. It was like the first time they ever let me alone. And I had this little hospital bed on a first floor. I had a stair glide to get to my second floor. And it was like, I'm going to take a shower by myself. I'm going to get dressed by myself. And like, I knew because no one was home. Like if I fucked up, I'm stuck. I got to fit. And I didn't. And just like the confidence and the self-esteem I got from that and how that then snowballed into just my whole journey of, living a new life. But I think if I'm hearing you correctly, like that's what you were able to do for other individuals was say, hey, like you don't need your hand held through this. We can find a way to really allow you to have some autonomy or at least some sense of that feeling, which is so important.
It's what everyone needs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you stifle that, or when you treat someone other than a person that has those same feelings and wanting to be independent and wanting to be, in their own world with their own goals, then it's miserable. Then you have people with behavior problems. I'd have the same behavior problems as anyone that's been told no. And that's I think what maybe you like a little bit about Marrakech is that we support anyone with a need and we don't put any limitations. So we have a couple with developmental disabilities that wanted to have a child, where other agencies are like, no, we don't do that. Then you have to move out, or then we're going to call DCF and you're not going to have your kid. How do you, what?
Right.
Or they don't support people that might, need to be changed because they can't use a toilet. We don't support those people. I don't even understand any organization saying, no, we don't do it. And so I had all this. So when I started at Marrakech, I was interning and there were about 35 employees and we were supporting about 50 people. And I got a job right after my internship because I was staying there. So they hired me. I was at $4.50 an hour. I'm like, cool. And that's where I started as an entry-level staff person. And that was my favorite job ever, was just working with people and helping them, to live the life they chose.
So intern to CEO over 38 years. What is it like to dedicate yourself to one company?
Yeah.
What is that? Did you think that was going to be the case? Could you have dreamt of that? What is that like?
First of all, I never wanted to be a CEO of anything. I always like being like helping. I don't like to be, that's not, I'm a special ed teacher. I'm sure my personality test would not say like, this is a CEO. Never said it in my life. Always wanted to be a teacher. Always wanted to be a helper. Always wanted to help people that needed help, but in their way that they wanted it. I always knew that. So the CEO is not even in the question. But then, so when we were moving people into their own home or group homes, depending on what their level of need was, I remember a family, a husband and wife, their son came to one of our group homes. They were living in he was living in a regional center. So it was like a bed and a divider and a bed and a divider. And there were 25 people. And it was just
Dorms.
And so, so now he's moving into his own room. We have a special tub he could use. He's like, just, flourishing, really smart, we found, like all this wonderful stuff. But his parents would come and every night his mom would bathe him. And I'm like, when you come, you could do a puzzle with him. Like, we have people here that will work and bathe him. And she's like, I don't know. I don't really. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to come. You could if that's, what you like to do, but you don't have to do that. We do that. That's why everyone's trained to do all that kind of stuff. And you could just have fun with your son. And she said, what about Christmas? And I go, I'm going to be here for Christmas. She's like, what about after I pass? I said, I'm going to be here forever for Billy. And I was 18. And then that was, I cry because she's since passed, you know, and I think that's why I'm still there. It's like I promised this guy's mom that I was gonna be there for her kid, and I made so many of those over the years that I can't even think.
You're welcome.
I got it. You know, and it's not that I'm on the hook. It's because I love doing. You know, how many people could say they love their job still after all those years?
Well, and that's a little of what I'm thinking of, where it's like I think of my journey, and like it seems every 4 years I get like really bored, and I'm like, what am I doing? But I guess in the process, you're able to see an organization from every angle possible, and that must have been somewhat refreshing. But it also sounds like it took you away from some of the individual work that you really love. So what was that like, kind of balancing, hey, my love for being in the trenches, and I'm not sure what the day-to-day looks like now, but my guess is it's slightly less of the trench work than maybe once. Well, and again, that's a very nasty way of wording it, so maybe I need to use a different way than in the trenches, but the front line.
Right.
Direct services.
So I just spoke in a circle and I made no sense. But I guess what was the trade-off in taking more kind of the big picture positions than the individuals working directly with clients?
That's a great question. And a lot of people ask that. And a lot of people get worried because we have to promote people. So I said we had 35 employees and now we have 650 or 700 employees. Mm-hmm. And so I watched the agency grow, and now I need managers, I need directors, I need HR directors. And so I had to grow too in order to, unfortunately, the hardest job, taking care of people and making sure they're okay, gets paid the least. And that's the way it is. And that's why we fight, and we have advocacy for that position as well. And, well, one thing is I found out that I not only really care about the people we support, but I really care about our employees. So being with our employees is also being in the trenches. Yes, today, one of our staff just came in to see me, and he wants me as a reference for his pardon. And I was like so honored. And, you know, like we're still making a difference for people. So when we came up with our tagline, we redid it about 6 or 7 years ago, and it's basically embracing human potential. So we care about the people we support, and we care about the people that work there, and we want everybody to grow. And I have to say, I was at a group home today. I was at a group home last night. So I do fit in. I think it's very important to fit into, and not that I do it every day because I can't and do my job, but I do make sure that on my calendar, and everyone should make sure on their calendars, are things that are important to you, no matter what you're doing and what position you're in, whether it's the people you support, your customers, and your family. Sometimes you forget about them too. Mm-hmm. and that to me, that helps me is make sure that things, if my calendar looks like, then there's something wrong and I'm going to burn out. So if my calendar's like, but then I get to see Laura, you know, that's important. So I make sure that there's something important on my calendar to me every day. So I still, yesterday I helped someone in the bathroom and helped her take care of herself yesterday. So and I think that the people I work with know that, and that's important as in being a leader, is knowing how to do the job too. Even when I was at a restaurant and I was the manager there, I had to know how to cook and clean and bartend and do everything. You're supposed to be able to know how to do everything and be able to do it with ease.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a relatively common saying, but someone once mentioned or kind of looked at me and was like, how can you expect your supervisees to do the job, to do this thing, if you're not willing to do that too? Right. And I think that is it's such an admirable quality, and I guess the work really keeps you grounded, and if you do the things that, as you kind of framed it, give you that pleasure, you have the thing on the calendar to look forward to. I guess it keeps everything in perspective, right? Where it reminds you why you do what you do and why. And I guess that's to answer the question of to stay in a similar environment for that period of time. It's because, hey, I get to do the things that I was doing day one and expand it and do more. It's so fascinating. Do you have any regrets in having like being in one place and not having other work experiences?
So I actually have other work experience.
Okay.
I worked at the Brooklyn School for Special Children while I was still, my mom made me work a lot when I was younger. So I did that for a while. And I also taught at Southern Connecticut State University and the Bridgeport University of Bridgeport. So when I had a little spare time, I would do some teaching because I love adult learners. I love teaching adults because I get so much out of it from being with other people. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's not a job either, but I've done that as well. So I've had other jobs.
What was the mentality as a teacher? Like, what was your mission? Sorry, Kev, I'm taking over this.
No,
this is actually
good. This is good.
Again, it's always about success. It's always about success. What did my professor do for me? She said to be a great special ed teacher, you have to find out where people live and work. So I want to give that back to every student I have. I want them to find that thing that's going to help them most. So I always teach to the class. I teach to what they want to do. Obviously, I cover the curricula that I have to cover and make sure they, I meet those objectives. But really, it's finding that moment for my students because she challenged me. And because of that, I'm doing what I do. So I try to give that back to my students.
Inspire them.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm actually appreciative because I got a little choked up too because I know firsthand when you build these bonds with the people that we serve, it's special. It's super special and it's super motivating, and even today I got some not so good news, but and probably last couple of weeks I've been a little discouraged. You go on this journey of I guess the other side of helping people, right? Like the admin side, the grant writing, the fundraising, all this other stuff that you have to do. But I would rather just be in the trenches, right? And it's just this conversation, a conversation like this, that just remind me of the why, and sometimes we need that. So I'm grateful that you start having more questions because I needed this today that's why I love this podcast because I swear it's like therapy for me. You know what I mean? When I'm talking to other individuals that's making an impact, like sometimes it gets hard. It gets hard, and it gets you gotta. 99% of the time I'm good, but that 1%, you know what I mean? It'd be the day where it's like, why am I doing this? I'm about to stop. I'm about to, you know what I mean? And I think today was necessary, and you mentioning Billy, like really, I needed that. So I thank you for that. For that, I guess we all get those 1%, right? Those days, like. Is what does it look like for you when you get those 1% to like get out of that mush, that funk?
So people describe me that I'm very happy. I smile a lot. Mm-hmm. I make sure that I make eye contact and see whether it's someone that just started working at Marrakech or someone that's been there forever or a family member or someone we support or a funder. I'm always like ready to go. What do you got? What kind of great idea? What are we going to do? And so 99% of the time, that's how people see me and they don't see any difference. And I remember there was a time where, I was walking by payroll's office shortly after I became CEO. So I want everything to be perfect. I'm walking by the office where the payroll people sit, and I just hear someone yell out, "Oh, Heather, I got you all that information. Isn't it great? I got it all to you." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't ask her for any information. Something must have happened." And so I stopped and I said, maybe we should call IT in here and you could tell me what information you got to me, because I didn't ask you for anything. And she lost her mind. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I sent everyone's social security." It was a phishing, computer thing. And so she's crying. The HR person that connected her with the phone call or the email, she's forwarded the email to her. So the two ladies are now in my office crying. Now, that one person, I wanted to be like, really? Like, first of all, everyone knows me. I'm not going to ever email you and say, make sure you give me everyone's social security. Like, that would never come. I talk to people. I walk through. I look at people. I talk to people. I never ask people for big things in an email. I just don't even like email. And so I wanted to say, what? I wanted to just yell and scream. And they're standing there crying, going, "Oh my God, you should fire us. Oh my God." And I had to say, okay, I'm in charge, so there's nothing else. It stops with me. What am I going to do? Mm-hmm. And so I looked at them. I go, I really appreciate that you're telling me this, but you are both very smart women, and I need you right now. I need you to help me with damage control. So I hear your apology. I hear what you're saying, but let's figure it out. And so we worked on it. We made sure the police were called. We made sure, and it was right around tax season. It was right around this time that year. And I wanted to make sure all of the employees knew that. I'm very big on transparency. I wanted to tell everyone, especially because it was around tax time. I didn't want someone for someone to steal their identity, get their tax refund, and then our employees don't have their tax refund that they need. So, we called all these experts. I called our lawyer, and I'm like, "I'm sending this out tonight, but I want you to make sure," because it was the same day. This within a few hours. I wanted to send out a notice to everyone immediately. Like, "Oh my gosh, we've been hacked. This is what we're going to do. I already got credit counseling. We're going to get this done. If you want to get your taxes done, or whatever you need, we're going to make sure everyone's okay." I'm about to press send, but first I send it to the attorney to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. She's like, "Heather, you got 30 days to do that." I'm like, "Why are you telling me that?" And she's like, "Just because." I'm like, "Well, what's wrong with me doing it now? If it's okay and legal and, I want to send it to everyone." "Well, it could be bad publicity. You could be on the front of the newspaper, "Oh, Marrakech gets all the," and I said, "I'd way rather have that and be transparent with these people that depend on us to give them the information they need to make the right choices, then 30 days later say, oh, and they hid it for 30 days. And now 20 people had their had their identity theft. So I'm like, so sometimes, and I doubted myself a lot. I still doubt. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you don't really want me for this podcast. Your story was so great." Like I always have that self-doubt, but in that 99%, that 1% of the time, I got to put on my big girl pants and say, "Nope, this is the right way." And you have to, if someone's telling you something, even if they're the expert, they're the ones you're paying to be the expert, you know best. And you have to question, the expert and say, "No, I don't think so." So either you're going to be my attorney and review this now, or I'm going to find someone that's transparent like I am and that's going to, do what you need to do.
So I have two things. One, and this might not come out right, but I'm really grateful to hear that you question yourself as much as you do, because you are, by definition, brilliant. And
Thank you.
I do the same thing, and I always think, like, why do I have to do this to myself? Because it's a weird form of torture, yet it's very soothing in the same breath. Mm. But I'm really glad to hear that someone as truly brilliant as yourself can have that same it's just comforting for me. The second piece, more of a question, is how did you develop your leadership skills? Because what you just described there, like, that's high level chess in real time, and it seems like I almost look at it as like, hey, this computer screen with like, hey, there's choice 1, there's choice 2, there's choice 3, there's choice infinite, and you landed on like the most adaptive choice possible. How did that happen? How did you develop those skills?
So, like you, question, my ability. I can't believe I didn't want to be in charge. That wasn't something I wanted to do, or I thought I could do. I didn't take, those classes in school. I wanted to be a teacher. And so what happened was our HR director was leaving, and my boss always asks, if you're leaving, who's going to take your position? And she said, Heather LaTorra would be the best HR director. And this was in the middle of me really running all the programs and stuff. And so my boss called me in and said, you're going to be the HR director. And I'm like, I don't know anything about HR. He's like, but you care about our employees like you care about the people we support. And that's probably the best beginning of being an HR director. I'm like, well, that's true. So I use the same sense that I would use for people that we support, is just, you treat you find out how people want to be treated, and you make sure you deliver, and that you're honest and open, and you admit your mistakes. So I think it's just being real is the number one, instead of worrying about, am I following the right thing? This person would be better at that. I don't want to make this speech. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be on the podcast. Just be real. Just be yourself. Trust yourself and your instincts.
Yeah, and I think use the word transparent. That seems like, hey, the actions I took, I can live with myself with those actions, right? Like, they seem like this is how I would want it done to me. But then it's so intricate, right? Because there's so many factors that played into even just that one example. And I'm sure you've had, I can't even pretend to count how many examples of that, which is just really fascinating. But something that also came through in that answer is you've had experience, it seems like, at every almost domain of this organization. So that the aggregate of all of that is so powerful to just, you have so much experience. And you can't beat it. Going back to what your teacher or your professor said, right? Like, you can't beat that experience, and there's no way to shortcut it.
Right.
It's just fascinating to connect those dots, where it's like, you're incredible because you've done so many incredible things. Now, you're not incredible for the sake of being incredible, right? And
I don't ever think I'm
but
incredible.
I mean, it just that adds up in my head. It's like, wow, talking to someone who has so much experience. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. Direct services, HR, CEO, and when what you just said remind me of what you said on our questionnaire, staying true to you. And I was gonna ask that, like, what that means, but I think you perfectly answered that already.
Yeah.
So I found the Marrakech story, the founding of it, so interesting. And I read about it when I first started at Marrakech, but I revisited, for this special occasion. And I think this time what stood out to me was one of the founders, and I hope I say it right, Susan Weisbrand, and her quote about normalization, and how, normalization does not mean merely adjusting to society norms, but, what actually is normal in society, right? So I just wanted to get your take on normalization and where you've seen the growth of that since starting straight out of, during, as an intern, as an intern in college, and, 38 years later, like what that journey's look like of normalization.
Yeah, so normalization makes me think of Wolf Wolfensberger, who's was really a leader in the field, and said, oh, you want people with disabilities to be normal, but you lock them in institutions and treat them as materials. And there's some things you could watch and read that will blow your mind. And I witnessed. And how could you even have normalization when you're locking people up and throwing away the key and just calling them materials so they don't have to say they're people. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Willowbrook expose that Geraldo Rivera did, where he went into an institution in New York with a camera secretly and just saw the conditions of how people were living, how would they ever be normal if they didn't have clothing to wear, and they had to fight for their food because the fittest person got all the food. And so, I met people and worked with people that ate like this. I was just talking to someone today because we still support someone that lived in Mansfield Training School. And when I met her clothing, her arms were so long on all her clothing. And I'm like, what's going on? And she just always had to straitjacket herself. So she would take any shirt she had and stretch it. And then it would make the shirt go up. So she's not normal. She's flashing. What? She's pulling the shirt over herself so she could feel secure, because that's how she lived most of her life before I met her. So, yeah. So at first normalization was the thing. And then it's moved up to social role valorization, which is the good things in life. What are your good things in life? You have privacy, you have go to sleep when you want, stop drinking coffee when you have to, whatever is good in your life, or drink a lot of coffee, whatever it is, it's your choices. You like strangers coming to your house? I don't, like there's things that you like and you don't like. And when when you have good things in life, when you are valued, and you could get the good things in life. But when you're talked about like a material, when you have all these wounds created by other people, that how are you going to live a life, a normal life? So that was a lot of the agencies that were being founded years ago when Marrakech were from parents. Well-meaning parents that said, we're going to start a group home agency. We're going to do that so our kids don't have to go to institutions. And they were great. And they still, a lot of the agencies today were started by parents. What's different about Marrakech is we were started by college students in the 70s. And they were like, everyone has a right to do, it was like more activism and more advocacy than ever. Because I know a lot of the parents that started agencies were not into like, she's going to get her own apartment and have a boyfriend and have sex and do like, that wasn't what that's not what they were looking for. And our place was founded like, everyone has the right, and let's teach them about safe sex, and let's do this. Right. And okay, yeah, this is for me. So everything's a little, relative, I guess. But, so yeah, normal is having the choice to do what you want to do. And so I go back to that.
Yeah, that's dope. Advocacy. Let's talk about it. Again, grateful and appreciative of bringing me along into the journey of advocacy and being able to be a part of that and seeing what it looks like and everything. But can you just go into that whole? You just touched on it with how the founders, college students, were advocating and being more voices for change. But how did that affect you, and how's that looked, and the accomplishments that you have already made with raising pay and the fight to continue to do that? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, it's a whole story in itself.
Yeah.
But human services in Connecticut, most of it's funded by the state. And then the state has a budget, and then they have a mandatory budget, to pay the state employees into the pension and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the discretionary budget, and we are in the discretionary budget, private nonprofit organizations that support people. And so some years we get a COLA, a cost of living increase, even though every year there's an increase in the cost of living, but some years we don't get it, and we have to, not give our staff an increase or, and we've had from 2008 to 2019 with no COLAs in most of our budgets. And so finally, and then I always heard like advocacy, you don't want to do it. You don't want to get in that mess. People will look, it's a problem. And then, so in 2018, I told my husband, as much as I love Marrakech, I cannot stay here and pay people. We were paying people $12.60 an hour to take care of people. It was less than Dunkin' Donuts. It was, and I felt like, I don't even know how to, I felt guilty every day going to work. I felt sick to my stomach every day. So I'm like, this is the year. if it doesn't change, I can't do my job, because I cannot just have our staff working 2 or 3 jobs. They have to get Husky healthcare. They have to get, they're on state assistance themselves. They're exhausted. They're not spending time with their families. Like, I just felt sick as can be. And I said, if we can't change things, but I also know myself, and I'm like, but we're going to change them. But we can't, but we're going to. And so that year I totally went out of my comfort zone, which is a big thing for me. It's like something on your calendar also has to be outside of your comfort zone. Always, if you want to grow. And so that year I decided this is what it's going to be, advocacy. And I remember the first time I met with one of my legislators, and I was sweating. I was talking about my mustache, my sweat mustache. I'm like, and you are looking for this, and our employees didn't get paid, and they haven't had increases, and we can't afford to, and we have parents calling for services, and we can't even do this. And that year we went from $12.60, and then the DDS, which is services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, went up to $14.75 that year. And when it was time for the governor to sign that, because I was there 24/7. I was there. It was my son's lacrosse game. I'm like, gotta go. The Senate's voting. Like, no matter when it was, weekends, whatever, I lived there, because now I challenged myself. I'm either going to be at Marrakech, where I love, or I'm going to have to leave because I failed at getting more money in the budget. And that year was awesome because we made a big change. And then we also started a momentum that, you don't value people with disabilities. You don't value our employees. And that's not acceptable. And so then I got comfortable with it. And
5 years later?
Yeah, we're still doing it. Unfortunately, we still have to fight, because there is that discretionary budget that the state has is very small. And if we don't say anything, they're going to be like, oh, we gave you money last year. And it's really not enough. We're still not where we need to be. Mm-hmm. So we got to keep fighting for that.
So you mentioned the calendar. Put something on there that you're always looking forward to, and put something on there that allows you to begin to expand or exceed your comfort zone. What are the other practical things you do to allow yourself to continue to grow, even given all your experience?
You have to grow. I thought I had all my experience when I was promoted to be the president, and the president before me was out of the office most of the time. And I'm like, why was he out of the office? Well, our employees are here, our people are here. And then I'm like, oh, that's why. You have to meet people. You're going to need a banker. You're going to need an attorney. You're going to need a trusted insurance advisor. You're going to need, all these other people. You're going to need people to hire the people you support in their businesses. You have to find people that love your mission and want to donate to your organization. Yeah, you have to be out of your office. So that was a whole new thing for me. And I remember walking into chamber events and other CBIA events, Connecticut Business and Industry, and just being there like, oh God, why am I here? Someone talk to me, it was just really scary for me, because I was also very comfortable at Marrakech. You might say, you were in your comfort zone forever. You're still there. So that's why you have to be out of your comfort zone to make things happen. And because of that, I have so many trusted colleagues that help whenever we need help.
Is there advice or a tip that you give to someone that doesn't know how to get out of their comfort zone?
Well, they know what it is that makes them uncomfortable. Sure. They know what it is. Then they might say, and I don't have to do it. And I could do my job without doing that. And I challenge you to do it. And and they might, you at least should try it. And if it doesn't work, or maybe it's not as effective and you find a different way, but it's so important. And you got to challenge yourself to do it. And then maybe that's the night you go and eat a pizza pie or something, reward yourself. But I'm telling you something. And I remember in college, so back to being 16 or 18 by the time I was interning at Marrakech. And on Thursday nights was happy hour that in New Haven. So you had New West Cafe and all those places. And
The West Cafe.
yeah, all those places. I learned how to play darts. I was really good. But before I was able to get in, my roommates, my friends in college were all Thursday nights at the bars. And there were 25-cent drinks, I hear. And I was at teaching dance lessons for people with disabilities, people that needed help, that wanted to go to a dance and they were practicing and whatever. So Thursday nights, I'd be at the dance things. Everyone else was at happy hour. We got together. If you were just bird's eye view looking in on us, you would think I was the drunkest because I was so thrilled with what I did that night. I was so high on life. I was so happy. And that's why I knew I was in the right place. I knew I was like, this is what makes me happy without drinking. This is what makes me thrilled in life and proud.
Purpose.
Yeah. It's kind of selfish. I know some people say, oh, you're altruistic. I am not. I am selfish as could be. This is what makes me happy.
There's nothing wrong with it. That's how we should be. When you find what makes you happy, you gotta run with it. You know, I think that's one of the things that's wrong with a lot of people or wrong with society. Like we put like these societal successes that might be a success for Ben, but not for me. It doesn't equate that I'm happy that I did whatever that is to do, right? Like it's what makes you happy, like getting to know yourself, you know, doing these different things and these different experiences to see what makes me happy, what makes me uncomfortable, and challenging yourself to be great. And I think, you know, we oftentimes limit ourselves.
Oh, we do. Yeah. I remember at Southern Connecticut State University called me to do a keynote speech for the master's graduation a few years ago. And I was in my office. I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I think I'm busy that day. Thank you, though. You know, what an honor. That was awesome. And I'm like, oh, great. I could tell everyone they asked me. And I hung up the phone. And the lady that sits across in the other office, Jill, who I work with, who's awesome, she's like, Heather, you better tell them you're going to do it. I'm like, what? I'm not going to speak in front of 5,000 people. I'm not. She's like, oh, no, you are. And I just needed that kick. And I did it. And I was so happy. I was happy it was done. And I was so sick that it was happening. But in the long run, that was totally out of my comfort zone. And it was a great experience.
And that in and of itself, I think, is the process of happiness. I don't even know if happiness is the right word, but it's this idea that I think so many people think you can skip that discomfort and skip the effort and skip the vulnerability and be able to get the outcome that you're hoping for. And it's not possible, right? It's the process of sucking at something and getting good at it that creates that esteem, that creates that confidence. Then you can replicate that to so many areas of life. But yeah, I'm really glad that you just shared that, because I think that is so important for me personally to remember, that it's part of the doing the things that you don't want to do, showing up when you're absolutely terrified, not knowing how you're going to accomplish whatever it is, finding a way, and then from there being able to reap the benefits. And then going back to what you were saying, Kev, where it's like, hey, everyone can experience happiness or wellness in these different ways. And I think it comes to prioritizing and what do we prioritize? And I'm curious, because you have so many layers to your life, your experience, how do you prioritize from family to career to what does that look like for you, to recreation?
I don't know if my family would say that that I'm always there, but you know, my husband and I knew when we met. He's a musician. He could work at night. That's great. You know, so we have different hours that we're working, and he was really the best father ever and took care of the kids as they were growing up. And you know, I got to see a lot of the first, but he was there for everything, and that gave me the ability to really focus on work and my Marrakech family. And so that was helpful. And then he will say, well, how many other boards are you going to serve on? Because I do sit on a few other boards, and that helps me grow professionally, and that takes me out of comfort zones too. And, speaking to different professionals, always feeling like inadequate. Why do you want me on this board? And what am I going to give to you? And now it's like, just seems to be like, oh, can you be on the board? And I want to say yes. We were talking about that. I want to say yes, because it's such a great thing, and I just can't do it yet because I'm on too many boards now. So eventually I will. But it is being able to say no. It is being able to make sure that the important things in your life are also taken care of, whether you're doing it or your significant other or your best friend or whatever. Like, you got someone backing you up and working with you.
Support system.
Yes.
Necessary. Huh? Necessary.
It always is.
That's the whole Winning Ways thing. So when we started Winning Ways, with me, Ben, and Andrew, one of the common things, and we're coming from different backgrounds and different obstacles and different traumas, but one of the many things that that was identical was our support system. Like, if it wasn't for, and I know I can speak for you for this, if it wasn't for our parents, if it wasn't for our siblings, our friends, no telling where we would be. They believed in us when we didn't believe in ourselves at all. And that's where we related to, and that's how our families are able to intermingle so well, because they understand and they seen us grow into to who we are, and when the odds were certainly against us, to be who we are today, and they believed. So, having your husband, shout outs to him. And I think for all our listeners and for everyone that's going through those difficult times, when you have that support system, I think anything is possible. You can't do great things by yourself. It's just impossible. So yeah, that's everything. Support. Yeah. No doubt.
So you mentioned learning how to say no. It sounds like that in the actual sense of learning. It didn't start there. Because if I was reading correctly, it sounded like you said yes to pretty much every opportunity that came in front of you for a very, very long time. Was that something that was intuitive or innate, or was it more guidance that you got from someone, or just felt like, hey, I don't have the ability, like this passivity where I can't say no?
Well, I think I was, or sometimes am, passive. I'd like to say, oh, I'm, it's because I could do it all. And I think sometimes I want to please people. And, I don't know. I wish I didn't always want to, but I do, because I have this really huge value for people, and I love to see people doing things. I love to see our employees, if they have a different business, even, or if they're trying to grow something else, or they're going to school, it's like, you want help with that? Like, oh, a lot of people might be testifying on Thursday, and I'm like, if you need help with it, come. Today I sat with someone we support, and yesterday I sat with someone I support and helped them with the, and it's like, other people could do that, but I just want to be there for everyone. And I don't know why. It's probably not right. There's so many people that can do it, and I just want to give everyone my attention. So it's probably not a great thing.
So the last question I have that I think kind of piggybacks off of that, or at least takes it to another level, is how do you maintain wellness given everything we've talked about this evening?
That is so important, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to. But also on your calendar, you have to put what keeps you strong. What keeps you strong? What is it? And exercise to me in the morning is. And then sometimes my friends are like, "Oh, I'm going to come," and I'm like, "No, I like to listen to a book. I don't really want to hear you." It's like sometimes, like on the weekends, come with me on a walk or whatever. But during the week, I want that hour. I'll listen to a book. I'll walk. I'll, lift weights, whatever it is. And I need to do that every day.
Not negotiable.
Yeah, that's something I need to do.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
good.
that no one is immune to that statement, right? Like, it is actually impossible to be your best self and experience your full wellness potential, whatever word you want to say, without physical activity, right? Like exercise is, I like to think about it. It's like, it really is non-negotiable. It's putting the money in the bank. If I don't have at least, everyone has 15 minutes a day to get your heart rate increased for that period of time. And if I do that, I know when I put my head on the pillow that, hey, I put my money in the bank today, right? Like I did my one thing that is a requirement to show up for life today to be able to have a shot at being a decent human being. And I know that can sound really dramatic, but it really is that way. Like, you know, probably more than anyone, like, I'm not fun to be around if I haven't given myself that oil change, right?
I do know.
Yeah, it's not like I'm just like, I immediately turn into this antithesis of what I deem myself to be, right? Like, I want to be compassionate and empathetic and loving and caring, and all of a sudden I'm, you know, snapping at I drop my pen, and it's the worst thing that ever happened to me, right? So I'm glad that you did mention that, because I think it's just so essential.
You just have your body. That's all you got.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it. When your body stops, you're done.
It's
so
over.
you have to think about that. And a lot of times people use busyness as like, I can't exercise because I'm too busy, or I can't do. And I'm not saying go. You know, you have to be doing cardio, whatever it is that helps you. You have to do it, and give yourself a half hour. And a half hour if you can't do an hour, or 15 minutes and 15 minutes, but everyone should do something.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I 100%, and you'll feel better. Like, that's the bottom line is, you might not think you will, but you will. You'll feel better. And it takes is maybe 4 or 5 days of consistently doing that to actually understand, wait a minute, I really do feel better.
Yes.
So I think the biggest problem is, like, you quit before the miracle happens, right? You
Right.
quit before you actually recognize the impact that this can have. Man, what else you got, Kev? You got any
Oh man.
anything else?
Oh man, I feel like we hit everything. This was a very good, very, very good episode. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm still kind of processing the working out part, because I know I've been recently getting back. I don't really go long per se without working out, but like, if I go now, like, a week for me is a long time. You know what I mean? Without working out, and that's very long for me. But that, like you're saying, it's such a immediate impact when I don't work out of who I am and who I am and who I want to be. So yeah, I just reiterating that, and
Reminder, work out. Reminder.
Work
It's
out
for you.
Yeah,
You only have one body.
that's it.
That's it.
That's it. And definitely want to treat my body right, because it treats me right. So, yeah,
Except
today
when
was,
you're blowing your back out.
you know, so so I was actually I left work at Marrakech. I was doing, good day. Boom, 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 boom. I wasn't working out.
You sneezed and it just
Oh, come on.
I got out the car at home. That little, I was done. Oh my God. So I went on light duty for like a week. It wasn't terrible because, in my position, I wasn't doing too much physical stuff anyway. You know what I mean? I was a manager at the time, so staff was able to hold me down. Shout outs to them. But yeah, it's so funny that when I do work out, not even an inkling of a black problem. But if I don't work out, maybe that's what I go on to 2 weeks though.
Yeah.
That's my point. 10 to 14 days. Yeah.
You're in trouble.
I'm in trouble and I'm hurt. I'm a big baby. Yeah, it's bad. I can't. I'm sitting down. It's crazy. It's bad. But we're doing good. We're doing better. We're working out.
Good.
We're stretching.
Stretching's good too.
Stretching is big. Stretching is big. I was younger at one time and would just jump in cold, you know what I mean, and have no problem. Now, oh yeah. I wish I would have stretched or go into sauna. Sauna is my cheat code. I'll go into sauna. Don't really have to do a whole stretching routine.
Right.
Sauna warm me up, but yeah, it's very, very important because tearing muscles is very easily, or straining muscles, excuse me. Straining muscles is very easy these days, especially in the winter. You know what I mean? So So yeah.
Well, on that note,
Where do you go from that note? I don't even know where to go.
I think
This is going to be interesting. Where are you going to go?
I was honestly going to shut it down after that. It didn't seem logical to bring it anywhere else. But
what can you do?
I don't know if we left anything on the table. It's just these are, and Kevin alluded to this earlier. It's like, to be able to sit here from my perspective, it's a cheat code, because you are a wealth of knowledge is an understatement, right? To be, and I mean that, like, to be able to experience every aspect of an organization from the lowest rung to the absolute ceiling, and to be able to get that unique perspective into what any business looks like. Truly, like, that is, not many people can say. I actually know no one that has had that experience of being an intern with an organization to then running an organization, the same organization, which is, I don't know, it's special. And I just, am really grateful that I can sit in this room, and even just to get this little ounce of knowledge that you were able to kind of bestow upon me and Kevin this evening. I'm super grateful for that. So thank you. Did we leave anything? Did we miss anything?
I just have to say, I listened to both of your podcasts before a while ago, and they were so moving and unbelievable. I'm like, what is going to happen? It was like, what's next? And my life was kind of like, this is, it just kind of fell into place. And I don't know. I just feel like we're so awesome. And you guys are so inspiring, and what you've experienced in your lives, and sitting and listening to you is just so awesome. So thank you.
Well, it's truly reciprocal there.
Yes.
It truly,
Agreed.
truly.
Agreed.
So thank you for taking the time and joining us this evening. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
The Falling Up Podcast.